This is going to be a very beginner-friendly guide to playing Balanced Druid in patch 10.0. No, patch 10? We're in patch 11, right? Oh my god. This is for the War Within, okay, everyone? I think we're in patch 11.0.5. This is going to be a very beginner-friendly guide for that patch that is in the War Within. I'm actually going to leave this in. I was like, should I record this bit? No, I'm going to leave it in because I think it's funny. So let's start off by looking at the stat priorities. We are going to look at both Raiding and Mythic Plus. There's not going to be much changes. And honestly, when I've been kind of looking into the changes for patch 11.0.5, I've got to say, I think it's getting easier for us now. I did feel a bit before, a few patches ago, that I felt like Balanced Druid was getting a bit less beginner-friendly, and I think actually it's getting better. So a few things to note. We are going with Keeper of the Grove for both builds in this guide. And the reason I'm mentioning that now is because the stat priority can differ a bit between hero talents. So we've got Intellect, of course. We want more and more eye level as a priority to get more Intellect. After that, the first thing you're going to want is Mastery. Your nature spells deal increased damage to targets affected by Sunfire, and your arcane spells deal more damage to targets affected by Moonfire. These are two spells here. They are dots, damage over time spells. We're going to have them up at all times, so the Mastery is really good for us. After that, we want a lot of haste, and then it's going to be Critical Strike and Versatility, but generally just get higher eye level and you'll be fine. There are a few things we need to know about with Balanced Druids. One of the main ones is Eclipses, and the other is Astral Power. I'm using a weak aura here to track these. If you would like my entire UI that is custom built by me, excluding these bars in the middle, of course, then you can get that on my Patreon. So let's first talk about Eclipses. If we're in single target, we want to go into a solar eclipse. And we go into solar eclipse by doing the opposite, by using two lunar spells. Let me say this a different way as well. Two lunar spells put us into a solar eclipse. Two solar spells put us into a lunar eclipse. If that sounds a bit weird or hard to grasp, think of it as this, right? Let's say I've got a single target here and I want to go into solar eclipse. Think of it as I'm using my moon spell, Starfire, twice to eclipse the moon or the sun, and therefore it's a solar eclipse. Yeah, I'm eclipsing the sun with my lunar spells. So two lunar spells will eclipse the sun. Cool. And that is empowering my solar spells, which is namely Wrath, which is a single target spell. I use two Wrath, as you can see then, to go into a lunar eclipse, which will enhance my lunar spells. So I'm just going to let that one go off. Let's start off with a single target rotation, okay? So I'm going to use Starfire and Starfire to go into a lunar eclipse. And down here, you can see that my nature spells deal additional damage, and Wrath's damage is increased by 60%. And that's the one with the ribbon around it. So when we use two Starfires, we enhance our single target spell. When we use two Wraths, which is our single target spell, we enhance our AoE spell, which is Starfire. Hopefully that makes sense. The other thing we're going to be generating, as you can see here, Wrath and Starfire generate some astral power. That's what I have 120 of here. That is our other main resource. And these two filler spells will actually generate astral power. And then we're going to spend it on Star Surge or Starfall. Star Surge is single target, Starfall is AoE. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's actually go through the full rotation. And I will explain that again kind of when we get to it. Starting off with single target. If there is one or two or maybe even three targets, generally still speaking of it's about single target, you want to Moonfire and Sunfire every target you can. So in this instance, it's these two here. You'll notice that your Sunfire will go on to nearby targets. Moonfire, it's a dot, a damage over time. Same with Sunfire, but it will do all enemies nearby. We also want to use Stellar Flame, burning the target, and then an additional amount. That is another dot. We want to dot up all enemies that we have, so our single target, and keep up these dots at all times. Then we're going to use the Force of Nature in the area where our enemy is. That's going to generate some treants, summon a stand of 3 treants to immediately taunt and attack targets in the area. And then we can use Celestial Alignment. Celestial bodies align, maintaining both eclipses and granting some haste. So you're actually going to get both solar and lunar eclipse when you use celestial alignment. And you can use that when you go into combat, basically to get straight into your solar eclipse without having to cast 2 starfires. So again, just to recap, keep your dots up, which are your Moonfire, Sunfire, and Stellar Flame. Keep those dots up. Use your Force of Nature. Get into your Eclipse immediately with Celestial Alignment. And then we can start using Wrath. Once you come out of your solar eclipse, which will be any second now, you'll notice the ribbon will go. There we go. Then we want to go back into solar eclipse by doing 2 starfires. So Starfire, Starfire, boom, we're back into our eclipse. Then we can use our Convoke the Spirits. That's just going to do a load of spells very quickly. We are now maxed on our Astral Power, right? And you do not want to cap out on Astral Power, so always use your Star Surge here so that you don't cap out. As you can see, I'm using a weak aura to track my Astral Power. You do not want to cap on it because it would be a waste. So do that, basically. And then Wrath is going to be your filler, of course, when you're in a solar eclipse. So let's just go through that once more. Keep up your dots at all time. Moonfire, Sunfire, and Stellar Flame. Use your Force of Nature on cooldown. Use Celestial Alignment on cooldown to get into solar eclipse. Don't cap on Astral Power by spending it with Star Surge. Use your Convoke the Spirits on cooldown. And then use Wrath as your filler here. And then, boom, we are now out of our solar eclipse. Let's go back into it with Starfire. And there we go. We can now use our Wrath again, not capping on Astral Power by using our Star Surge. And then again, using Wrath as a filler. And making sure that we're keeping up our dots. And when we come out of our solar eclipse, boom, we use our Starfire twice to go back into solar eclipse. Again, not capping on Astral Power, and then using Wrath as a filler. And that is literally the rotation. If you want to switch that over to AoE, all we're going to do is change a few specific talents here. You can see the Mythic Plus build. I'm just going to change over to it. Both of these are in the description, by the way. You can see we're changing a few talents here. Namely, Sunseeker Mushroom. Sunfire has a chance, passively, to grow a magical mushroom. And that will explode and deal damage to nearby targets. So that happens passively. It's a bit more AoE, added in naturally to the build. We have our Moonfire here, also dealing increased damage, and it hits another nearby enemy. So, you know how Sunfire also does nearby targets? When you use Moonfire, it will also do 1 nearby target in the Mythic Plus build. So it helps you get your Moonfire out, because we want to dot up all targets that we can in Mythic Plus. We also get this talent here, Ethereal Kindling. Casting Starfall extends the duration of those dots on your target. And remember, Starfall is the one we're using. So Star Surge is how we're spending Astral Power in single target. Starfall is how we're doing it in AoE. So you can see here, I could use my Starfall, and it's actually going to extend the duration of our dots on there, even better. And you can see the mushroom is on there as well. Again, if you want my UI, including my plater profile, all my bars here, minimap, details, voodoo, literally everything, this is on my Patreon. And by the way, Patreon also actually opens up a VIP channel in Discord, and I can even do things like review your logs and give you one-to-one advice on how to improve if you would like that. It's the best way to support me as a creator, if that is something you'd like to do. And that is pretty much it, guys. I want to go through some important talents with you as well. We do have something called Star-Lord here. Star Surge and Starfall grant you some haste for 15 seconds, and it stacks up to 3 times. However, gaining a stack does not refresh the duration. Okay, I'm just going to go into the raid talent tree, just because that's where I've got my action bar set up, because I want to show you what this means in practice. So, as you know, we're going to be generating Astral Power, and I said not to cap on it, right? So let's say we're in a single target rotation. I know I've gone into Solar Eclipse, but who cares? I'm going to use Star Surge, right? So I've got 120 Astral Power. I'm going to use Star Surge. When I use Star Surge, can you see here I've got a stack of Star-Lord, increasing my haste. Now it's ticking down 8, 7. When I use it again, I've got 2 stacks, but it doesn't refresh the duration. And a third time doesn't refresh the duration. So as you can see there, if I'm using that third one when it's about to fall off, I'm basically wasting that third stack. Let's have a look again. Let's just get up to maximum astral power. Whereas if I use it 1, 2, 3, I've got that full haste benefit of 12% for a really long time. You see what I mean? Whereas again, if I basically, again, use it really slowly, so 1, and then maybe I've not got any astral power, I have, but let's pretend I don't. And then it's like falling off, and then maybe I'm like, right, now I've got enough astral power to use it twice, and I'm going to go 1, 2, oh no, I've got 3 stacks, but now the buff's fallen off, and I've basically wasted them. Try and do 3 at a time with astral power as closely as you can, while also not capping on astral power. So that's a really important talent that will improve your DPS there. Another one that I like to mention is Stellar Amplification. Star Surge increases the damage that your target takes from your periodic effects, like your dots, and shooting stars by 20% for 5 seconds. So whenever you use Star Surge, it's also going to actually increase how much damage the target takes from you. And then shooting stars is this talent here. Moonfire and Sunfire, the damage over time from them has a chance to cool down a shooting star or falling star, dealing astral damage and generating some astral power as well. And there's a few talents that actually then go into that. Like during the first 6 seconds of every eclipse, shooting stars fall a lot more often, for example. Now, those are the most important talents. There is one huge one here that's more beneficial in Mythic Plus, which is Solar Beam. It's a really good and a bad talent, and it's one of the best and the worst in the game, in my opinion. It's an interrupt, so we can interrupt our enemy spellcasting, but it's on a 1-minute cooldown. While a lot of other classes have their interrupts on like a 10 to 15 second cooldown, somewhere around there, usually about 15 seconds. We actually have ours on a minute cooldown. However, it summons a solar beam of light over a target location, interrupting the target and silencing all enemies within the beam for 8 seconds. So although we don't have any other way of interrupting, unless we go into cat form and go into like Skull Bash here, which we're not, it is actually an amazing, it's the best interrupt in the game. Hence why it's on such long cooldown. So there's a real pro and con to having that, but be aware of that as well. We are Keeper of the Grove. I'm just going to show you the capstone or keystone talents for this one. Force of Nature grants 3 charges of Dream Burst, causing the next Wrath and Starfire to explode. And then we have here, each of your Force of Nature treants increases damage your spells deal. So whenever you use this cooldown, Force of Nature, you're going to do more damage. And that's what Keeper of the Grove kind of goes into, is your treants. What I would recommend is when you're much more comfortable with the spec, like I've shown you how to do it and the keystone and key talents, I would just have a look at all your other talents and see how they fit together. But let's not overwhelm you because this is a beginner guide. And also the same with your utilities. We can go into bear form. This is a fantastic defensive that we can use whenever we want. Bark Skin is another great defensive that you should look out for. Same with Renewal. For things like utilities with actually helping us and our team, we have Stampeding Roar, which will speed you up. We can go into Prowl in cat form, which is stealth, which is fantastic. You could do that out of combat. Really good in Mythic Plus. And obviously you're in Moonkin form because you're in balance. Ursol's Vortex is great at stopping your enemies in their tracks as well. And Typhoon is great for pushing them away. And Dash is really good at speeding you specifically up, whereas Stampeding Roar is good for the team. Entangling Roots as well is good at stopping your enemies in their tracks. Very good in Mythic Plus. So once you are more comfortable with the spec, if you are a beginner watching this, what I would say is do what I've said in the video. Maybe just try out the rotation or watch the rotation part of this video a few times until you've got the hang of it. Then maybe like go, right, I'm comfortable with that. Now I'm going to look into more the utilities and things like that I can do. And then kind of put it together, etc. Or look at the talents that I haven't spoken about and just be like, oh, right, okay, that's how that goes into that. But I've shown you all the really important ones, and I think this is going to be a great guide to actually, get you off your feet and do some really casual content. You're not going to be going into mythic raiding or anything, but this is for the average player, which I think a lot of YouTubers don't cover. So hopefully you did enjoy it. As I said, if you want to get my UI or get extra help from me, please join the Patreon. I really, really appreciate it if you do. And we have some really helpful people in Discord should you need anything else. And there's no question that is stupid or anything like that in our Discord. That's kind of how we run it in there. And check out the playlist you now see on screen, as I do every single spec in the game.